Welcome back to the Nonprofit Spotlight, the show where we shine light on nonprofits and everyday heroes working to strengthen our communities from inside and out. I'm your host, Mike Gutzler, and today's conversation is one that sits right in the intersection of dignity, equity, and basic human needs. Imagine trying to start your day or go to work or send your child to school without something fundamental to clean undergarments or menstrual products needed to manage a period. For far too many women and girls, this isn't hypothetical, it's a monthly reality. And that's where today's featured organization steps in. BRAWS, which stands for Bringing Resources to Aid Women's Shelters, is a volunteer-powered nonprofit that distributes new bras, underwear, and menstrual supplies to women and children in crisis. Their mission is simple but profound: to restore dignity, to empower those navigating hardship, and to spark bigger conversations about menstrual equity in our communities. From shelters to schools to transitional housing and refugee centers, BRAWS is meeting needs that are often overlooked but deeply impactful. And today, we're going to dive into the stories, challenges, and triumphs behind their work, and how each of us can be a part of their solution. So settle in, open your heart, and let's explore how something as small as a properly fitted bra or a month's supply of pads can truly change a life. And I'm very excited to introduce Holly Seibold, who is here on behalf of BRAWS. Holly, do you want to just take a moment and introduce yourself and how you are connected to this fantastic organization?
Yeah, thanks, Mike, for having me here today. I'm really excited to be speaking with you. In 2015, I had learned about women who were and girls who were in shelters and unable to access menstrual supplies. And so this is something, as a woman that I had never really considered, that being able to access these products, is something I just took for granted. But for others, it's life changing. So I went ahead and started my own collection drive, and then continued to distribute those products throughout the community. And here we are, 10 years later, still really fulfilling the same mission that we started 10 years ago. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to be able to tell you more about that today. So thanks again for having me on the show.
Yeah, of course, definitely. So tell us a little bit about those early years, or kind of what was the motivation, or what was the impetus that got you started in this direction?
Yeah, so I had read an article about another organization, a great organization doing lots of good work in the community. Dress for Success, which many of your listeners may be familiar with. They really worked with women who are experiencing homelessness, particularly domestic violence victims who leave with nothing but the clothes on their back with their children. So a few volunteers who were really the subjects of this article asked some of the women during this, while they were volunteering, what else is it that you need? And the women had said, it's great. I have my beautiful suit. You all are working with me. You're teaching me career skills and helping me get that first interview. But I don't, I like, if I get my period the week of that interview, I can't go because I don't have any menstrual supplies to protect me, to make me feel clean, to also that inner feeling of dignity, right? So they're not going to walk in feeling like dirty. And so that really hit me. It really hit me. And they also, and the reason so menstrual supplies was definitely something that I wanted to ensure I helped our community with. But then again, the conversation went on, and a bra as well. You're giving these women suits, you're helping them fit, but without a proper bra, and a bra is very much like a functional piece of clothing. I mean, we can have them pretty, but at the same time, it is something that makes your outfit look better, as well as having a clean pair of underwear. And so, I was like, well, whatever I do, I want to include these four items: pads, tampons, underwear, and bras. And even at the time, when I had learned about different organizations who were providing used undergarments. Certainly, people were donating bras and gently used underwear. I was like, from the very beginning, I knew it would be more of an expensive venture to make sure that they were new, but that was important, especially with the dignity piece. And so I set out on this mission to ensure that women and girls had access to these products, brand new, with tags. And again, here I am today, 10 years later, still trying to really promote this mission and make sure those who are underserved really have access to these four items.
Yeah, well, that's impressive. I appreciate your point about how you're essentially changing the individual's mindset from
Yes.
having nothing to be prepared for, say, that interview as the example you gave, to not even having that a part of the equation and going into the interview being
Hmm.
confident and having dignity and being prepared, as one always
Hmm.
should be for an interview like that.
Yeah.
So can you, maybe people had not have thought of bras or menstrual products in that way before. How do you go about thinking about these products and getting them out to people in need?
Yeah, from the beginning, we partnered with other organizations. We didn't have the capacity to vet folks. And so to me, it made the most sense of partnering with already existing shelters. When I held that first collection drive in January of 2015, we called it Mardi Bras because we did like a Mardi Gras theme because it was right around the time of Mardi Gras. And so we collected tons of items. So I would come home, I was dropping my kids off at school. I'd come home and there'd be like packages of pads and tampons sitting at my doorstep. So even people who were unable to come to that event that day wanted to contribute because again, I think it hit them in a way of like, oh my God, I never considered what this would be like not being able to have access to these supplies. Like, how do these kids go to school? How do they go to work? And so people were really generous and really quick to jump in and help this particular mission. So after we collected for a few weeks and then we had the event, I honestly wasn't sure where I was donating the items to. I knew that obviously we have a close proximity to DC. I assumed I would go to DC and find a shelter there and be able to distribute the products in DC. But I did my research and I found and I live in Vienna, and just within like a mile or two of my own home existed domestic violence shelters. You may not know they exist because they look like apartments or hotels, but they're there and there's lots of people in the community, already established organizations that are doing really good work. And so I reached out to three different organizations in particular, Shelter House, which is a fantastic organization. They have just expanded immensely. They're all the way in Loudon now, but their particular domestic violence shelter is called Artemis House. So I reached out to them, provided the products. We did something called a distribution day where I actually came and brought the bras and I allowed the women to pick their own bra. It was this shopping experience, which was incredible because not only, they're really down on their luck. And so it wasn't like I didn't just want to hand over a bra, and they're also very expensive bras. So I wanted them to be able to find one they're comfortable with, wire, no wire, frill, no frill. It doesn't matter to me. Whatever they wanted, it was their choice. And I wanted them to have that shopping experience. And we had a couple of like bathrooms and closets set up so they can have a little dressing room space. They can try it on. And so we had that experience that day. That was the first distribution I ever did. I also obviously brought the pads and tampons with me and they were able to pick what they're comfortable. Every woman is different. And so we also then reached out to, at the time it was Alternative House, but they're now known as Second Story. And they work with teens. And so replicated that moment and let them also have that opportunity to shop for a bra and pick the menstrual supply that they're most comfortable with. And then finally, the third one was Homestretch, which is in Falls Church. And again, another fantastic organization we still work with today, and let them have that experience. And so it definitely required more funding than just, having people donate gently used bras, more manpower to give people that experience. But all of that to me falls into that bucket of dignity, right? How can I make a silly little package of pads, right? So important. It wasn't about, to me, it's not, and it has never been about periods, like not the biological term period, right? It's about making sure they have access to products that make them feel good, make them feel clean, make them feel dignified, make them feel strong. And so that they're able to go about their day, go to their jobs. Particularly, I'm a former teacher as well. And so making sure that the students go to school knowing that they are protected. There's nothing worse than getting your period at school and not having any way of managing it. Having to go down to the nurse's office is humiliating. And so making sure that they have that, they're prepared, it's in their backpack. So when that situation arises, they can just quickly go to the bathroom, take care of their business, and come on back. We do not want anyone missing class because they have their period. In the beginning, I had to kind of work with other individuals and I started reaching out to faith-based institutions and restaurants and started like holding collection drives. And then the more products I got, the more shelters I was able to expand. And because I think your original question was like, how do we find our partners? It was really just, word of mouth. Let me tell you, like it spread quickly. The shelter is a small world, right? So the shelters would contact me and be like, I heard you're giving out pads and tampons. Like, how do I get some for my clients, right? In my shelter, we don't have the funding, we don't have the capacity to provide these items, but they're constantly items that we're being asked for. So that spread to different shelters. And then also we started working with schools. Schools are a great place to reach those who are most in need. And at the time, the PTAs were starting to create their own pantries within the schools. I met someone who was running the Oakton High School pantry, and she was like, "We would love to have these supplies, no problem." So I would then work with her, provide them. And then I think they were doing something called Friday bags, where they would fill the bags for the whole entire family. And so they would put the products in the bags to go home to families, and they would count the number of girls and who were in the home, and then we would provide that to them. And then that spread word of mouth as well to the different pantries in the different schools. It continued. And obviously, and we could keep talking about this, but then COVID happened, and that's when we started working with food pantries and other different organizations because the need was so high starting in 2020.
Yeah. No, it just the bigger project of changing the narrative about bras and period products as a luxury to a basic necessity is
Hmm.
some of the best stuff that you're doing. And on your website, you gave amazing statistics, which is kind of hard to believe. And I just want to make
Hmm.
sure I read this correctly. It says that in Virginia, 1 in 5 menstruating people can't afford period supplies. So what do you think are some of the biggest like systematic barriers creating the menstrual equality gap, and how does bras try to shorten that gap, or how do you try and fill that need, and what do you see as potential like a long-term solution for this issue?
I mean, frankly, they're expensive. I've had these conversations with folks doing food pantries before. It costs $1 to purchase a can and then donate that. But in order to purchase a package of tampons, it's about $10. And so being able to donate that is just harder to find. And so people usually go to cheaper food, I would say. Also, the stigma that surrounds period. People are much more apt to purchase food than, a period product. It's a stigma. People don't want to talk about it. It's uncomfortable. But again, it's expensive. It's 10 like the average price of a package is $10. The average bra is $25, right? And so we're talking about items that are not cheap. And so from the very beginning, it has been very hard to convince someone to purchase food, to purchase products to fulfill period poverty versus purchasing products to fulfill food insecurity. It's not necessarily a competition, but it is something that's been really hard to destigmatize and educate folks about why these products are as critical as food, and that they need to really commit to making sure that people have access to these products. So yeah, I think it's been the cost prohibitive over the years, and that's been a challenge. When I got involved in 2015, menstrual supplies were taxed heavily, as you mentioned, luxury goods, right? They were incurring, in addition to the $10 average price of a package, they were being taxed an extra 6%. The same price luxury cars are being taxed. And so we made it our mission, maybe a few years after starting providing direct services, advocate towards Richmond that we need to be able to lower the price of menstrual supplies by removing the tax. So the good news is that passed many, many years ago. So they are a little bit cheaper because, unlike many other states, we do not have a tax on these supplies anymore. We've tried over the years to eliminate any type of barrier. So the tax was a barrier. Legislation was passed several years ago as well that requires schools to provide them in bathrooms. So that actually helps us because now the schools are providing them, so we don't necessarily have to ensure that they're in the school bathrooms in the public schools in the area. So that allows us to be able to distribute more targeted way to families in need. So I think, again, the cost is very high. Removing the barriers to accessing them, to purchasing them is something that I think would help. It creates systemic change in the long run. This is Virginia, but there's still many other states that have a lot of these barriers. And I'm really proud of BRAWS for ensuring that shelters do have an abundance of these products so that women and girls who are struggling, again, domestic violence victims, those who are just, experiencing food insecurity can have access to the products without having to purchase them themselves.
Yeah. It sounds like you've even done some work in refugee camps as well, or refugee centers. Is that
Oh,
correct?
right. Yes. So we actually got a grant after Afghan refugees were coming on over to America. We got a grant from the Community Foundation to purchase products so that we can make sure those who are newly arrived in the country have access to these supplies. You can go to the airport and start handing them out. We worked with the Lutheran social services organization to make sure that they had it so that they can offer this for when people arrived in the country.
Yeah, that's great. And LSS does such fantastic work
Oh,
with
they
the
do great
refugee
work.
community, so
Yeah,
that's
so I
awesome.
always have to give credit to our partners out there because I mean, without them, we wouldn't be able to distribute them to the people who need it most.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned the great work not only on the legislative side that you guys have helped work to get these supplies into schools,
Mhm.
but at the same time, it's just the dignity piece and the access piece is so important. You'd also mentioned on your website about how often young girls that are either playing in sports or just
Mhm.
attending school are likely to miss or to not attend because of not having access to some of these
Yeah.
materials during their time of need. And so, do you maybe have a story that you could share of a way that the work that you've done had made a significant impact on the local school level?
Yeah, Mike, thank you. I'm so glad you brought that up because that is, as an educator myself, making sure that all of our girls have all of the opportunities that they ever dreamed of has always been something that has been the center of bras. And so, sports bras, that's something that we haven't really talked about yet. Sports bras are really essential parts of the uniform, right? These girls cannot participate in sports if they don't have a sports bra. Over the years, I have met many girls who say to me, "Thank goodness that you provided that bra because I wanted to do track. I wanted to do field. I wanted to do basketball, but it was so uncomfortable for me. It was so embarrassing for me, and it just hurt. As I mentioned earlier, bras are functional. If you have the right bra, your shoulders feel better, your back feels better, particularly if you're playing sports. And so that is when I met this girl and she told me that, I was like, we need to make a very specific targeted effort to ensuring that we work with the social workers at the school to find out who is not participating in the sport they want to participate in because they don't have access to a sports bra. Today, I don't have the numbers in front of me. That is one of the items that we distribute the most. We work directly with the schools, the social workers at the schools, or the parent liaisons at the schools, to find out who has the ability, who has the interest in these sports, but are not fulfilling their dream to participate because of the access to the sports bras. So just really happy that we're doing that. And I'm thinking like all the girls over all these years who once they got that sports bra participated in sports, maybe they got a scholarship. Maybe that was their key to college. Like that one little piece of clothing may have changed the entire trajectory of their life. And I'm just really proud to be part of it.
Yeah, that's something very to be proud of. But what makes
Mhm.
me think about it, and this is kind of going off script here a little bit, but the work that you've done locally and on legislative level to get these kinds of equipment and
Uh-huh.
supplies into the local communities on the state level for middle schools and high schools. Did that legislation apply also to state universities here in Virginia? Are they required to provide these same kind of access to
Mhm.
materials and supplies?
That is a great question. Unfortunately, no. We have advocated over the years to provide them in public universities. There are many students who have tried this over the time. Unfortunately, it does not apply, which I wish it did because as you know, it's very expensive also to be a college student. And so anything that we could do to help them succeed in school, we should be doing. And this is definitely something that is an expensive item, but a basic necessity. Some of the universities, and I've heard it from many students over the years, have on their own placed baskets in the bathrooms and have tried to accommodate their students and try to improve access to these products. And they've done that on their own. There's actually been really great student organizations that have also tried to do it on their own, where they're filling up baskets in the school bathrooms at the universities. But officially, it is not something by law that the universities have to provide.
Okay. So it seems like there's still room for growth and
Of
there's still
course.
lots of
Yeah.
organizations and entities that have room to grow as well with you.
I mean, even with the public schools, we would like to see more compliance. We
Hmm.
hear from students all the time that I was in the bathroom and there were no supplies. Doors for the bathrooms are locked in some of these schools because they're having vaping issues, or I don't know, the kids are just making a mess. And so a lot of the schools then will just lock a lot of the bathroom doors, and perhaps some of those bathrooms had the supplies and the dispensers in the bathrooms. So there's a lot of issues with compliance. We would like to see that change as well because This is, again, something that's essential. We don't take out toilet paper. We don't take paper towels out of the bathroom because, we're afraid that they're going to mess the bathroom up with, but they take out they're quick to take out the pads and the tampons all the time
Hmm.
if the bathroom turns into a mess. We have a lot of growth. We have a lot of growth to do. We want to make sure the schools are being compliant. We want to make sure that products are not an afterthought in the school system but essential product. I really think we have destigmatized the topic for a lot of people because just the fact that the students are willing to reach out to us and say, I know my rights, I know I have access to these supplies and I'm not being given them,
Yeah.
is huge because I grew up in a time when nobody would even talk about it. So the students are advocating for themselves. They're recognizing that this is something that they should have access to. They understand it's the law and that, nobody is pulling the toilet paper out of their bathroom. There's soap in the bathroom, but this is something that's not in there and they should have a right to it. So I love hearing from students all the time complaining about not that these products are not in their bathroom because that means that they're paying attention and they know how important this access is, whether it's themselves or maybe they're advocating for people who are not as well financially,
Hmm.
right? So this is just something I love. I love to see the destigmatization of it. I love to see people talking about it and fighting for their rights. So that's the good news.
Yeah.
The products aren't always in the bathroom, but there's people watching out and seeing it and noticing.
Yeah. And thus the value not only of that advocacy done by the students, but
Yes.
the value of you all as an entity
Mm-hmm.
and able to take those calls. So I was hoping we could maybe change a little our direction here, our
Sure.
conversation, and so that you could talk a little bit about the BRAWS organization, how you utilize volunteers,
Yeah.
other ways that people who might want to be involved could volunteer with you, or if there's positions that are out that you're looking for, even if it's a volunteer capacity that would be good for the people to know who might be listening to this and might be motivated to be supportive.
Yeah, would love, love, love as much support as we can get. I am going to first and foremost put a pitch out for financial donations. As I mentioned, we do not take used items. We do not take even packages of pads or tampons that are open, right? We give them, it's very important that we provide new packaging. Also, we're doing it out of safety. Believe it or not, tampons do expire. They have an expiration date. We don't want to be distributing something that is unhealthy. And so that's why we have a really strict rule that everything has to be sealed. And same thing with the bras. We have a strict rule that we only distribute items with that have tags on them. And then underwear, typically we get packages of underwear that are sealed as well. Sometimes there's like 5, 10 in a pack. But if we do get individual underwear, it needs to have a tag as well, just to ensure that it is brand new. And so because we don't take used items, we really do spend a lot of money purchasing them. So financial donations are the best possible way for people to help us out. At this point, after doing this for 10 years, we know exactly what the girls like the best, which products they like, which they're most comfortable with. We know the different communities because different religious communities have different rules.
Hmm.
Some do not use tampons, some use pads. And so, as much as we do love to accept donations that are sealed and have tags on, it's just much easier for us to purchase it because we know what everybody needs and wants. So, financial donations are really important. There's no amount that is too small. For $5, we can purchase a pair of underwear, right? And so, we know exactly what type of underwear that the girls want. We'll purchase it and bring it to them. And I don't know if I got into too many details about the logistics of what we do, but every single month we distribute. A lot of our partners do not have space. And so, because they don't have space, we cannot be dropping off like a pallet worth of pads or tampons, even though it would be cheaper for us to purchase wholesale. We do really tailor it to our partners. And so that is why it gets dropped off every month versus sending a wholesale pallet because they just don't have the schools don't have the capacity. The smaller shelters don't have the capacity. So we purchase those items, pack it up, and then this leads to what else we need help with. We have volunteers who bring those supplies to the different schools, to the different shelters every month. And we bring them exactly what they need. We have a great operations director who's formed deep relationships with our liaison at the schools or at the shelters. And she has a conversation every month and says, like, tell me exactly what you need this month. She provides that down to the size that they've asked for. We provide that very tailored service. And so we make those purchases and then the volunteers come and purchase and pick them up and bring them there. And so we definitely need volunteers for that. We do have shelters that are very large. Like we work with Women Giving Back, which is another good organization. They have a huge warehouse. So the financial contributions are important as well because we are able to purchase wholesale. So we do make cuts where we need to do, where we are able to do that. And so we will purchase an entire pallet for Women Giving Back each month. Women Giving Back is a huge, wonderful organization, and they serve a ton of people out in Loudoun. So it's a great way for us to partner and ensure that folks in Loudoun are getting those products. But go back to your original question: is we need volunteers to make those smaller drops happen, and we serve about 80 partners each year, so there's a lot of deliveries to be made. So we'd really love volunteers to help with that, volunteers to help just do collection drives. As I mentioned in the beginning, when I started bras, it was really a grassroots effort. I reached out to the faith community and asked them to put a box in their lobby, which they were very happy to do. They gave me opportunities to come and speak to the congregation about this need. It's been a stigma for so long, so allowing me to come and speak and reach your audiences is was huge at the time, and we were able to collect a lot of supplies and raise money for these causes. So anybody who's willing, who's out there, who has a place to house a box or has the ability to do a fundraiser, that's a great way for our volunteers to help out, and really contribute to the mission and to the cause. I, as a founder, I'm always happy to come and speak anywhere, anytime, to any group, club, a social service organization. I'm always happy. I would love, so invite me to come and speak. I'll tell you more about the mission. So if there are people out there who are listening who have an audience, we would be grateful for that opportunity as well.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of ways and lots of opportunities. It starts pretty basic, pretty easy to pretty elaborate and pretty engaged. So
Yes.
that's super important. In addition to that, as you think about the past 10 years that you mentioned and thinking about the future 10 years and where you go as an organization, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges in front of you? And that could be anything from logistic or financial or societal. Like what are some of the biggest challenges you see in front of you?
Yeah, I laughed when I started BRAWS 10 years ago. I said my entire mission is to put ourselves out of business. That, and I still believe that, so that everyone has access to menstrual supplies like they do toilet paper, like they do paper towels. It should. I want menstrual supplies to be everywhere all the time, so that anybody has access to them, no matter what financial situation that they're in. I don't want kids missing school. I don't want kids missing sports. I don't want them to go to the rec centers and have to go home. I want them to be able to participate in the community theater. I want them everywhere all the time. And 10 years later, I feel like we're doing a better job, but we still have a long way to go. And now, financially, the world is hurting and food insecurity is growing. Unfortunately, I think our mission is going to be bigger than ever. We're going to have to be everywhere that food exists, so that when they're coming to get their food, they're also coming to get their other basic supplies. I mean, that's what happened during COVID. That's essentially what happened when, the churches were doing food drives. We piggybacked on that and provided the menstrual supplies. We were very fortunate at the time to get lots of different grants, and that gave us ability to do that. I've heard a lot of the organizations that provided us grants, they've hit capacity as well. So that's the burden is always going to be our finances. We purchase expensive items and have a lot of people to distribute them to. And as the need grows, insecurity grows, we're going to have to be there every step of the way providing them. It's a lot of people to serve.
Half the
So
population.
half the population. And so unless the government steps in and finds a way to address this through policy, which is what I would really like to see, making sure that is by law, just the same way they require by law soap and toilet paper to be in bathrooms, that this
Yeah.
is something that businesses and government buildings and schools and whatnot are providing. We're going to have to be there, and we're going to have to exist to fulfill that gap, so that anyone experiencing poverty does have access to it and can continue living their life successfully.
Yeah. You mentioned in passing before the Mardi Bras event.
Yes.
And I was wondering, could you say a little bit more about that, if it happens every year or you have other kinds of annual fundraisers or events that support
Yeah.
you and your work?
Yeah. Thanks for asking that. I appreciate you highlighting that. Mardi Gras is something that we've held since the first donation. We've done it every year annually around February. That's pretty much our largest fundraiser, and it is tradition. That's something we're known for in the community. Always need sponsors for that. That is, as I mentioned, is our biggest fundraiser. So much of the income that we bring in during that event does sustain us for several months. And so, it's fun. It's laid back. It's a great opportunity for someone who wants to support bras and just make a date night out of it or have a good time. But we definitely need sponsorships. So if anyone's listening who would like to sponsor it, all are welcome. We do smaller events throughout the year, hyper local. It's just a way to engage with your community and join in on the fun and also help spread the word and bring donations and raise money. So it's really from the very beginning, we've been a very tight knit community who've helped really this cause. And so all these smaller events are opportunities for people really to engage in the community on this issue and also have fun while raising money for the cause. This year in May, we're going to have a new event. We really haven't broadcasted yet. So you're the first to hear about it. We're going to try to do a breakfast like many other nonprofits do, something early before work. We can come, gather, have a meal, and learn more about bras. So we're really trying to reach a new audience, maybe a more corporate audience, and get some of those businesses involved, so they understand that this is an important need and that they can help fulfill that mission in the community as well. So that's something to look forward to. The reason we chose May also is Menstrual Health Awareness Month, and so that's something that we thought would align well with the month. And so, yeah, there's lots of fun ways to get involved. It's all on our website. You can follow us. Your listeners could follow us on social media, and we'll be posting about all the different ways to get involved. And you can volunteer for those events as well, or you can put on your own event. Anybody who's listening who wants to do their own event, to come up with something that we haven't thought about, can do that as well. And we'd be really excited to partner with anyone to help
Excellent.
our cause.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you feel like we should emphasize or you'd like the listeners to know, either about the organization or just the need that's out there? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, particularly if you have listeners in Prince William County or Loudoun County, those are our biggest service areas. We serve tens of thousands of women and girls in those communities. Unfortunately, though, most of the funds that come in, 90% of the funds come in from Fairfax County. And so we're really trying to partner with more businesses and people in those communities to really spread the word in Prince William and spread the word in Loudoun about the need. And so if you have listeners from those different districts, I'd love to hear from them and see what we can do to partner to really get the word out that this is a problem in the community and we're here to solve it.
Anything else come to mind?
Check out our website, social media. And I'm personally, I'm always here to talk if anyone wants to reach out. We are just excited to be able to tell our story today. And really appreciate your time, Mike, making this happen. I know, it's a busy season for you. So the fact that you stopped what you're doing church-wise to really promote our cause and talk about our mission means a lot to us. So can't thank you enough for this opportunity and wish you all the best this holiday season.
I'm honored to have some of your valuable time with all the hats that you wear. And thank you so much for what you and your entire team is doing for our community here locally, but as you continue to expand into other parts of Virginia and DC and Maryland, thank you for just raising awareness and supporting so many young women and older women and anybody who's just don't have access to this very basic need that everyone deserves. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you.